Chapter 1. The Address. Ella Stormfang arrived home from the bonding with a carpenter's address in the pocket of her traveling cloak and the specific, grinding awareness that she had done something irreversible. She hung the cloak on the peg in her chambers and caught her reflection in the window glass, auburn hair coming loose from the twist she had pinned that morning, green eyes, the face of a woman who fixed other people's problems and had just, in the space of one feast, developed one of her own. She hadn't done anything, technically. She had attended a bonding feast. She had toasted the happy couple, Alpha King Holland Mercer and his Luna, Nora Pello Mercer, formerly the beta of Pac Mercer, formerly the most decorated enforcer in 3 generations, and formerly the woman whose love life Ella had detonated in 90 minutes on a Tuesday 6 months ago. The detonation had been necessary. Ella had been sent to Pac Mercer as the 11th marriage candidate for the Alpha King. She had arrived. She had watched Holland glance at his beta twice during the welcome ceremony. She had watched Nora hold her expression too perfectly neutral. She had sat across from both of them in 2 separate conversations and told Holland, in terms that left no room for interpretation, that he was suffering from romantic cowardice with administrative justification, and that if he did not tell Nora Pello he was in love with her within the hour, Ella would do it for him. He had told her. Nora had been walking toward him at the same time. They had met in a corridor, confessed and bonded 3 weeks later. Ella had returned to Stormvale with the rejected candidate paperwork and the private satisfaction of a wolf who had seen a problem, solved it, and left without asking for payment. That had been 6 months ago. Tonight was the bonding celebration. Ella had been seated near the front, guest of honor, the woman who made the marriage possible. The feast was beautiful. The dancing was terrible. Holland and Nora were terrible at dancing, and neither of them cared. Then a wolf had come to refill her glass. He was tall, broad-shouldered, 29, with light brown hair that the sun had streaked pale at the temples from years on scaffolding, and a face that was tanned and weathered from standing in weather on high places. His hands were calloused and careful. The hands of someone who worked with them daily, who understood that the thing you were holding deserved care. He held the wine jug the way she imagined he held a chisel. His eyes were warm brown, and they watched her the way she was used to watching other people. Closely, unhurried, with the patience of someone who was going to see whatever there was to see. "I'm Crew," he said. "I built the arch they stood under." "It's a beautiful arch." "Thank you. I'm better at building things than talking about them." His eyes were steady and warm, and they watched her the way she was used to watching other people. Closely, without apology, with the patience of someone who was going to see whatever there was to see. Ella Stormfang, who read rooms the way other wolves breathed, found herself being read. She did not hate it. They talked for an hour. He made 4 observations about the feast hall's architecture that were more interesting than anything anyone had said to her in a year. The first was about the central beam. Original, 300 years old. The builder had known the wood would move and accounted for it. He described the grain pattern with his hands, tracing the line in the air the way another man might describe a landscape. And Ella watched his hands move and forgot, briefly, that she was Ella Stormfang and that she had opinions about everything. The second was about the doorways. "They're wider than they need to be," he said, "by about a foot on each side. Whoever built this hall expected wolves to come through those doors shifted and didn't want them hitting the frame. The architect was thinking about the wolves, not the humans. You can tell a lot about a builder by which version of the people they design for." The third was about the hearthstone. He walked her over to it, walked her, as if they were touring a cathedral, not standing at a feast, and pointed at the base. "See the wear? 300 years of wolves sitting here. The stone has shaped itself around them. That's not damage. That's memory. The building remembers who sat here." The fourth, the one that Ella would think about at 2 in the morning, walking alone on the path back to the guest quarters, was about the arch he had built for the bonding. "I chose pine," he said, "for the main span, because pine bends without breaking. Most builders would have chosen oak. Most builders would have been wrong. Oak holds, but it holds rigid. Pine gives. It absorbs the weight and adjusts. That's what you want in an arch, something that moves with the structure instead of fighting it. You are describing wood, Ella said, and somehow it sounds like you are describing something else entirely. I describe what I see, Crew said. Most of the time, what I see is wood. Sometimes it isn't. She had looked at him then, really looked, the way she looked at rooms she was assessing, except this time she was not assessing. She was simply seeing. A man who described a building the way a poet described weather, who held a wine jug with the attention of a craftsman, who had spent an hour talking to her and had not once tried to be impressive, had not once performed wit or intelligence or charm, had simply been who he was and let her decide whether that was enough. It was enough. It was more than enough. That was the problem. She laughed 3 times at his observations. He laughed 4 times at hers. She noticed that when he laughed, the stillness in his eyes shifted, softened, and there was something underneath the warmth that she wanted to examine more closely, but could not, because examining it would require admitting she had noticed it. And admitting she had noticed it would require admitting that a carpenter at a feast had, in the space of 1 hour, become the most interesting person she had met in a year. His scent was everywhere. Sawdust and warm wood and linseed oil, the smell of hands that had shaped timber for a decade. Underneath it, something quieter. Rain on stone, the clean mineral smell of a wolf who worked outdoors, who stood on scaffolding in weather, whose body knew what the sky was doing. She left the feast with his address. She did not give him hers. This was deliberate. She was Ella Stormfang. She collected information. She assessed. She made decisions from positions of strategic clarity, not from positions of wanting to hear a carpenter describe load-bearing walls at 2 a.m. Her wolf, which had the same sharp, impatient, decisive energy that Ella herself had been saying the same thing since the moment Crew walked away from the drinks table. Write to him. Ella hung her traveling cloak in her chambers at Stormvale. She removed the piece of paper from the pocket. Crew's handwriting was clean and exact. Even the address was well constructed. Write to him. You fixed a king's love life in 2 conversations. You can write a letter to a carpenter. I am assessing the situation. You assessed the situation at the feast. The assessment is complete. He is interesting. He is kind. He made you laugh 4 times. You counted. Write the letter. I counted 3. You laughed a 4th time on the walk back to the guest quarters, when you remembered the thing he said about the tensile strength of pine versus oak. You laughed alone on a path in the dark. That is the 4th laugh. That is the one that matters. Write the letter. Ella sat at her desk. She dipped her quill. Dear Crew of the Outer Walls. She crossed it out. Too formal. Crew. Too familiar. To the carpenter who built the arch. Absurd. She was not writing to an arch. She was writing to a man whose hands smelled like linseed oil, and whose description of oak settling had made her forget, for approximately 45 seconds, that she had opinions about everything. You have dismantled 3 drafts. You once walked into an Alpha King's study without invitation and told him he was a monument to cowardice. Write the letter. Ella wrote the letter. 4 paragraphs, a comment about the feast, a question about bridge construction she had genuinely been thinking about, a remark about the wine, and a sentence at the end she had revised 11 times. I found our conversation unusual. I would like to continue it if you are willing. She sealed it. She sent it. She then spent 3 days in a state of focused agitation that she refused to acknowledge as nervousness. You are nervous about the carpenter, her wolf said. I am not. Your handwriting on the morning correspondence has been unacceptable for 2 days. You are nervous. Chapter 2. The Letters. Crew received Ella's letter on a Thursday. He was on the outer walls of Pack Mercer, replacing a section of parapet damaged in the spring storms. His hands were full of mortar. His foreman, a wolf named Dustin, brought it up the scaffolding. Letter for you. Stormvale seal. Crew set down his trowel. He wiped his hands. He opened the letter. He read it twice. The first time for the words, the second time for what was underneath. The careful construction of casual. The 11 revisions visible in the final sentence. The fact that Ella Stormfang had written him a letter about bridge construction and had ended it with a sentence that was trying very hard not to sound like what it was. He held the parchment closer. Her scent was on it, faint, embedded in the fibers. Frost, and something green underneath, like wild rosemary growing on a cold hillside. Sharp, clean. The scent of a woman who moved through the world cutting precise lines through everything she touched. Something in him, the still part, the part that noticed how light fell on doorways and how rivers changed a hillside, and how a well-built joint held for decades, noticed something else now. The shape of her sentences, the precision of her wit. The woman who wanted to continue talking to him and had not known how to say it simply. His wolf stirred. Not loudly. Cru's wolf did not do urgency. It moved the way foundations waited for walls, with sureness. The wall would come, the mortar would set, the structure would hold. She wrote, his wolf said, tender and sure. She will write again. If we answer well, she will write again. This is how it begins, one piece at a time. That evening, Cru sat at his workbench, a heavy oak table he had built himself, now claimed as a secondary residence by a red fox that had appeared 3 weeks earlier and refused to leave. The fox was sleeping under the far end. Cru wrote by lamplight, in the same clean handwriting he used for blueprints. He wrote about the bridge he was building at the eastern crossing, not the engineering, the morning light on the river underneath, the way fog sat in the valley at dawn, the sound of water under new timber. He wrote about a pup he had seen learning to walk on the scaffolding, both hands on the railing, face serious with concentration. He wrote about the parapet repair, old mortar crumbling, new mortar setting, the satisfaction of something broken being made whole. He ended with, "The arch at the bonding was pine. I chose pine because it bends without breaking. I think about that sometimes." He sealed it. He sent it. His wolf settled into the stillness afterward, the patient, tender certainty of an animal that had placed the first stone. She will write back. If we keep building, she will keep coming back. That is how this works. That is how everything works. Ella received Cru's reply on a Monday. She opened it at her desk. She had been expecting a polite response, a reciprocal question, the kind of competent, measured correspondence that well-bred wolves exchanged. What she got was a man who described morning fog in a river valley as if it were the most important thing he had ever seen, and a sentence about a pup learning to walk that made her eyes sting for no reason she could identify, and a closing line about pine bending without breaking that she was going to think about for the rest of the week. She lifted the parchment. His scent was woven through it, sawdust and linseed oil and rain on stone. She breathed it in before she could stop herself. Her wolf registered it with a low, satisfied hum that she chose not to examine. He described a bridge, her wolf said. Why is a bridge making us feel things? It is not making me feel things. It is a well-written letter. You have read it 3 times. You are holding it with both hands. Your scent has changed. You are feeling things about the bridge. I am appreciating his prose style. You are in trouble, she wrote back the same day. She could not help it. Her letter was dense and overpacked. A comment on his bridge description, a counter-observation about the way snow sat on Stormvale's northern ridges, a question about the pup, 2 sentences about her father's counsel that were funnier than they needed to be, and a closing line she had not revised at all. You chose pine because it bends without breaking. I would like to know what else you have built with that principle. The letters continued, weekly at first, then twice a week. By the 2nd month, Ella was writing every 3 days and pretending this was a normal frequency for professional correspondence about bridge architecture. His letters stayed 1 page, clean handwriting, specific observations, the way a stonemason's apprentice held his chisel, wrong, but with commitment. The color of the sky before rain in the western hills. The fox. The fox became a recurring character. It had taken full possession of the space under Crewe's workbench and had developed what Crewe described, with characteristic precision, as architectural opinions. It disapproved of elm, it approved of cedar. It had stolen a measuring string and hidden it somewhere that Crewe had not yet identified. "He has a fox," Ella's wolf said. "A fox that has architectural opinions. This is unreasonable. No one should be allowed to have a fox under their workbench and also have excellent handwriting. It is too many qualities." Ella wrote back, "Please inform the fox that cedar is the correct choice and that I support its position. Also, check behind the third leg of the workbench. Foxes cache in blind spots." Crewe wrote back, "Behind the third leg, you were right. You have never seen my workbench and you knew where a fox would hide a measuring string. I noticed this." "He noticed," her wolf said. "He notices everything. He noticed us. Write back immediately." "I will wait a reasonable interval. Write back immediately." She waited 1 day. This was, by her recent standards, heroic restraint. Her letters were the opposite of his, dense, sharp, full of observations and arguments and precisely aimed wit. She wrote about Stormvale politics, her father's counsel, the particular absurdity of old blood tradition in a world where most problems were solved by wolves who could lift things. She wrote about a mare she was training and a dispute between 2 pack elders she had mediated with what she described as diplomatic violence. She wrote about the bonding, about Holland and Nora, about the expression on Holland's face when she had called him a monument to cowardice. Crewe wrote back, "You've fixed a king's love life in 90 minutes, and you are writing to a carpenter about a fox under his workbench. I see this. I see most things, but I see this specifically." Ella read that line 7 times. She wrote back, "You describe morning fog as if it owes you a personal report. I find this disarming. I do not like being disarmed. I am going to continue writing to you about the fox because the fox is safe territory, and I need safe territory right now because your letters are making me feel things I did not plan to feel, and I am a wolf who plans everything." Crewe wrote back, "I understand that the fox is safe territory. I will continue to provide fox updates. The fox has moved from under the workbench to behind the lumber stack. It has had kits. There are 4 of them. They are very small and they disapprove of everything. I am building a shelf above them so the sawdust does not fall on them when I work. This is the most important project I have undertaken this month, and I need you to know that." He built a shelf for the fox kits, her wolf said. He is building furniture for foxes. This is the wolf we are in love with. He builds things for foxes and describes fog and keeps every letter we send in his coat pocket. I can smell our own scent on his parchment. He carries us. He has been carrying us. How do you know he carries the letters? Because his scent is heaviest on the edges where a hand holds a page while walking. He reads our letters outdoors. He reads them more than once. The wear pattern is consistent with a man who folds and unfolds the same parchment repeatedly. Her wolf paused. I am observant. I learned it from someone. Ella pressed her face into the letter and breathed. Sawdust, linseed oil, rain on stone, and did not pretend she was doing anything other than exactly what she was doing. By the 3rd month, the letters had changed. Not in frequency, every 2 days now, the postal wolves earning their keep, but in weight. Crewe wrote about his mother, who had died when he was 12, a carpenter like him. She had built the first bridge he ever walked across. He had rebuilt it twice since then, each time keeping one beam from her original design. I keep the old beam because the structure remembers where it came from. I think people are the same. Ella read this sitting on her bed in the dark, curtains open, moonlight on the parchment. His scent rose from the paper, sawdust, linseed oil, the mineral smell of stone and rain. She pressed the letter flat against her chest and held it there, and her wolf said nothing at all, which was worse than anything it could have said, because Ella Stormfang's wolf always had something to say, and its silence meant the feeling was too large for words. She wrote back about her own mother, alive, formidable, Luna of Stormvale for 28 years. She wrote about growing up in a house where women spoke precisely and men listened. She wrote about the first time she had realized she could read a room faster than anyone in it. 9 years old, a packed dinner, turning to her mother and saying, "Alpha Hargrove is lying about the Eastern Patrol." And her mother looking at her with an expression Ella had never forgotten, pride and worry in equal measure. "I have always seen too much," she wrote. "It is useful. It is also lonely. You are the first person I have met who sees as much as I do, but describes it instead of weaponizing it." Cru's response was the shortest letter he had ever sent. "I don't weaponize what I see, because the things worth seeing are not weapons. They are bridges." "We are in love with the carpenter," her wolf said, with the flat sureness of a wolf stating a fact that had been obvious for weeks. "I know," Ella said. "Then do something about it." By the 4th month, Ella was visiting Stormvale less and finding reasons to travel toward Pack Mercer more. She had not yet visited Cru's workshop. That felt like a line she was not ready to cross, because crossing it would mean standing in the same room as him and smelling him without a layer of parchment between them, and she was not certain her composure would survive it. She told her father on a Thursday evening. They were in his study, the same desk where he had signed 11 generations of political correspondence. Gareth Stormfang was 57. He had her eyes, the keen green, the quick assessment. He had ruled Stormvale for 30 years with the steady certainty of a man who believed tradition was not merely a preference, but a load-bearing wall. "Father, I need to tell you something." "Sit." She sat. "I have been corresponding with a wolf from Pack Mercer for 4 months. His name is Cru. He is the head carpenter of the outer walls. He has built half the kingdom's bridges." She kept her voice level. "I am in love with him. I intend to bond with him." Her father was quiet for a long time. "Cru," he said. "Of the outer walls?" "Yes. A carpenter. The head carpenter. He has built, I heard you, he has built bridges." Gareth set down his pen. "Ella, you are from old royal blood. The Stormfang line has held Stormvale for 11 generations. Every Luna in our history has bonded with a wolf of rank." "I am aware of the history." "Then you are aware that what you are proposing is unprecedented." "Unprecedented is not the same as wrong." "In this case, it is." His voice was not raised, not harsh, certain, the deep, immovable conviction of a man who had carried a tradition for 30 years and could not see past it. "Lineage exists for a reason, Ella. It is not vanity. It is structure. Rank protects you. It protects your children. A carpenter, however skilled, does not have that standing. He has built the walls protecting 6 villages. He has built walls. He has not led the wolves behind them." Ella's wolf surged, direct, clear, mirror image of her. "Tell him he is wrong. Tell him that lineage is a wall, and walls without doors are prisons. Tell him." "Father," Ella said, "I have never asked you for anything. I am asking now. Meet him. See him. Judge him by what he has built, not by what his father's father built." For one moment she saw something flicker behind the certainty. Not doubt. Grief. The grief of a man who loved his daughter and was about to refuse her. "No," he said. "I will not meet him. I will arrange a suitable match." He said it with love. That was the worst part. He said it with the genuine love of a father who believed he was protecting her from a mistake. Ella stood. She did not argue further, because she recognized, with the same precision that made her dangerous in every other context, that this wall was not going to move with words. Her wolf was quiet. It had nothing to say. No sharp observation, no impatient directive, no "fix this, we do not hesitate." Just silence. The silence of an animal that had always known what to do, and for the first time, did not. Chapter 3. The Dark. Ella sat in her chambers for 3 days. She did not sit passively. That was not who she was. On the first day, she went back to her father's study. She brought documentation, Pack Mercer's records of Crew's bridge commissions, letters of commendation from 3 territorial alphas, the engineering assessment of the Eastern Crossing that called his work structurally unimpeachable. She laid them on her father's desk. Gareth read them. He set them down. These confirm that he is an excellent carpenter. They do not confirm that he is an appropriate match for a Stormfang. Father, Ella, my answer has not changed. On the second day, she asked her mother. Luna Stormfang, retired, formidable, the woman who had taught Ella to read rooms, sat with her daughter for an hour. She listened. She did not take sides. Your father is not wrong about the world as he understands it, her mother said. He is wrong about the world as it is. Those are different problems. Can you talk to him? I can. I don't think it will help. He has decided this is about tradition, and when your father decides something is about tradition, it becomes about the Stormfang name. And when it becomes about the Stormfang name, it becomes about everything he has spent 30 years building. You are not arguing against a preference. You are arguing against his identity. On the third day, Ella sat at her desk and stared at the 4 unfinished letters to Crew and the blank parchment that would become a different letter entirely. Her wolf had been silent for 3 days. It had not pushed. It had not strategized. It had sat in the silence the way a honed blade sits in a sheath, present, ready, with nothing to cut. You cannot fix this alone, her wolf said finally. Not impatiently, with the specific, uncomfortable honesty of a wolf that was admitting the same thing its human was refusing to admit. I know, Ella said, then ask. Ella Stormfang had never asked for help. She had walked into rooms and fixed things. She had read situations and dismantled obstacles and departed without requiring anything in return. Asking for help required admitting that the woman who had fixed the Alpha King's love life could not fix her own. And that admission sat in her chest like a stone. She wrote the letter anyway. Luna Pello Mercer. I am out of my depth. My father has refused Crew. I have spent 4 months falling in love with a wolf my father will not accept. I have argued. I have presented evidence. I have gone back twice and been refused twice. I have, for the first time in my life, no idea what comes next. I am writing to you because you once defeated 11 challengers by being 4 moves ahead. I am asking for 4 moves. Ella. She sealed it. She sent it. Then she wrote to Crew. The letter she had been unable to finish for 3 days. It was short. It said, My father has said no. I am not giving up. I am finding another way. Please do not think this changes what I have told you. It does not change anything. Crew received Ella's letter on the scaffolding of the Eastern Bridge, morning sun on his back, the river running below, the same river he had described in his first letter, the fog, the light, the sound of water under new timber. He read it. He folded it. He put it in his coat pocket, beside the 7 other letters of hers he carried there. He carried all of them, every letter she had sent, folded and ordered by date, because Crew was a man who kept the things that mattered where he could feel them. The Fox kits had grown. They were old enough now to venture out from behind the lumber stack, and 3 of them had taken to sitting on the workshop floor while he worked, watching the sawdust fall with expressions of deep suspicion. The 4th, the smallest, the one Ella had asked about in her last letter, sat on his boot. It had been sitting on his boot for a week. Crew had adjusted his working posture to accommodate this. He had written to Ella about the kit on his boot. She had written back, You have been adopted by a fox. This is not a metaphor. I refuse to make it a metaphor. It is simply a carpenter with a fox on his boot, and I find it unbearable." She had crossed out unbearable and written charming, and then crossed that out too and written important, and then crossed out all three and written, "I miss you. I did not intend to write that. I am sending this letter before I can edit it further." He kept that letter closest. It was the most worn. Now he read her new letter, the short one, the one that said her father had said no, and his wolf did not panic. It sat with the information the way it sat with a measurement that needed rechecking, with patience and certainty. She said it does not change anything. Then it does not change anything. We build. We keep building. The wall between us is not permanent. No wall is permanent. I have watched you take down walls that stood for 100 years. This one is newer. This one will come down faster. Crew picked up his trowel. He went back to work on the bridge. He did not write back that day, not because he was hurt, because the thing he needed to say required the thing he was building to be finished first. He worked for 2 more weeks, 12 days on the span, the joists, the railings. He laid each piece with the same attention he gave everything, testing, fitting, adjusting. He did not rush. His wolf did not rush either. They were the same in this respect. Patient, certain, building toward a thing they both knew would hold. He thought about Ella while he worked, not abstractly, specifically. The way she constructed a sentence, the precision, the sharpness, the wit that was always almost too much and then landed exactly right. The way her scent lived in her letters, frost and wild rosemary, sharp and clean, softening only at the edges. The way she had looked at him at the feast, the scanning stopping, the assessment dropping. The woman underneath all that precision simply looking at a man who had described a ceiling to her and made her forget to be clever. He laid the final beam on a Thursday morning, pine, the same choice he had made for the arch. He stood on the finished bridge and looked at the river and felt his wolf settle into the structure underneath him. This is what we do. We build. We build until the thing we are building reaches her. It always reaches her. He wrote to Ella that evening, 2 pages instead of 1. The bridge is finished. I chose pine for the main span. The same pine, for the same reason, that I wrote about in my first letter to you. Which means I have been building toward you since before I knew I was building toward you. I think you should know. Your father's refusal does not change the bridge. It does not change the beam I kept from my mother's design. It does not change the fox under my workbench. The kits are walking now. The smallest one still sits on my boot. I have named it Rosemary because it smells like your letters, and it sits on things it has decided belong to it. The things worth seeing are not weapons. They are bridges. I told you this. I meant it. I still mean it. The bridge is here. I am standing on it. Whenever you are ready, you can stand on it too. He sealed the letter. He sent it. He stood at his workbench and looked at the bridge through the workshop window. The finished span, the pine, the river underneath. His wolf was quiet for a long time. Then, or we go to her. Crew looked at the bridge. He looked at his hands. He looked at his best coat hanging on the peg by the door, the one without mortar stains. He did not answer his wolf, but he did not disagree. Ella received the letter on a Friday afternoon. She was sitting at her desk, the same desk where she had drafted 4 unfinished letters, the same desk where she had written to Nora. The Stormvale seal on the incoming post had become a thing she dreaded. But this seal was not Stormvale. It was Pac Mercer, and the handwriting was his. She opened it. She read it. She read it again. He had named the fox kit Rosemary, because it smelled like her letters, because it sat on things it had decided belonged to it. She pressed the letter against her chest, the same way she had held the mother's beam letter, the same way she held every letter of his that cracked something open. His scent rose from the parchment. Sawdust, linseed oil. rain on stone. And underneath, the warm certainty of a wolf who had spent 2 weeks building a bridge while her father's refusal sat folded in his coat pocket and had not once stopped building. "The bridge is here," her wolf repeated. Not sharp, not impatient. Just the words, held out where Ella could see them. He built it. He is standing on it. He is waiting. Ella folded the letter. She put it in her coat pocket, the same pocket where she kept his address, the piece of paper she had carried home from the feast 4 months ago. She had 7 of his letters now. She carried all of them. She would carry this one into whatever came next. Chapter 4. The Debt. Ella did not wait for a reply by letter. She packed a bag and rode to Pack Mercer. She arrived at the castle 3 days later, road-worn, sleepless, and carrying the tactical clarity of a woman who had spent 3 days in a saddle with nothing to do but plan. Nora met her at the gate. Ella looked at her and said, "I am here to collect the favor you owe me. I need the Alpha King. I need you. I need a table. And I need someone to help me because I have tried twice and my father will not move." Nora brought her inside. That evening, Holland sat by the fire, holding a cup of the tea Thomas Pellow had taught him to drink. Nora stood by the window. Ella sat in the chair across from them, the same study she had walked into uninvited 6 months ago to tell Holland he was a monument to cowardice. The irony of sitting on the other side of the desk was not lost on her. "We owe her our entire marriage," Nora said. "We do." Holland looked at Ella. "And now you are sitting in my study, the same study, asking me for relationship advice. I need you to understand that we are spectacularly unqualified for this. We spent a year unable to say the words. I sat through 11 marriage candidates. Nora organized my courtship schedule while being in love with me. We needed you to tell us we were in love. Now you need us." "I am aware of the irony," Ella said. "I am choosing to overlook it because I am desperate." "Fair. What do we know about your father?" Ella paced while she spoke, back and forth across Holland's study, hands behind her back, voice clipped and clear. "He respects demonstrated authority. He does not respond to emotional appeals. He considers them manipulative. Your title matters. Your debt to me matters more. My father is transactional. If you frame this as returning a favor, he will hear political balance, not charity." "We don't argue against tradition," Holland said. "We argue within it. We give Crew rank. Crew of the Royal Walls of Mercer, under my seal. The title is not charity, it is recognition. That gives my father a door he can walk through without feeling he has abandoned his principles." Nora looked at Holland. "That's actually not bad. Don't sound surprised." "I am adjusting to the idea that you had a good plan without someone else forcing you into it." "Also," Ella said, "my father drinks his tea strong. Drink whatever is offered without flinching." "Your father's tea," Holland said. "Nora's father's tea nearly killed me." "Consider it training," Nora said. "You have experience." They left for Stormvale the following morning. Holland, Nora, and Ella. 3 wolves, 1 carriage, and a political case that Ella had designed with the same exactness she brought to everything. Except now the precision was personal, and underneath it, visible only to Nora, was the fear that even this might not be enough. Before they left, Ella wrote to Crew. A short letter, the first she had managed to send since the refusal. "I am at Pack Mercer. Holland and Nora are coming with me to Stormvale. We have a plan, a title, a political case. Stay where you are. I will write when it is done." His reply arrived the morning of their departure, carried by a postal wolf who had run through the night. 1 line, in his clean handwriting. "I understand. I will be here." Ella folded the letter. She put it in her coat pocket with the others. She did not notice the absence of a location. She read "here" and thought, his workshop, his workbench, the fox under the lumber stack. She thought, he is patient. He is waiting. He trusts me to handle this. She did not know that when Crew wrote "here," he had already packed his best coat. Chapter 5. The Hall. They arrived at Stormvale together, full royal honors, Holland in the king's formal coat, Nora at his right in the enforcer's posture, and Ella between them, returning to her own home with reinforcements she had spent 3 days coaching in a carriage. Holland had spent the journey rehearsing his speech. Nora had spent it reminding him that his last attempt at planned eloquence had been described by Ella as romantic cowardice with administrative justification. "I have improved since then," Holland said. "You have improved at being told what to do by competent women," Nora said. "That is not the same as improving at speeches." The steward met them at the gate. He bowed to Holland and Nora. He looked at Ella. "Lady Stormfang, your father is in the hall. He has a guest." Ella stopped. "A guest?" "A wolf from Pack Mercer, my lady. He arrived 3 days ago, while you were away." Ella looked at Nora. Nora looked at Holland. Holland looked at the steward. "Who?" Ella said. "Crew, my lady, of the Outer Walls. He requested a private audience with Alpha Stormfang on the morning of his arrival. They have been—" The steward hesitated. "They have been having lunch together every day since." Ella stood very still. Not the keen, decisive stillness she wore like armor. The stillness of a woman who had designed a strategy and coached an Alpha King and spent 3 days in a carriage preparing for battle, and who had just learned that a carpenter had walked into her father's hall while she was gone. "I will be here," she thought. His letter, his clean handwriting. She had read "here" and thought, the workshop, the workbench, the fox. She had been wrong. He had meant here, Stormvale, her father's hall. The place where the wall was. He had bent the sentence the way he bent pine, without breaking it. "They have been having lunch," Ella said. "Yes, my lady. I believe they are at table now." Holland looked at his prepared speech, metaphorically speaking, and began to suspect he would not need it. They walked through the castle corridors. Holland straightened his coat. Ella walked ahead, her stride fast and precise, the stride of a woman who is about to walk into a room and discover something she had not planned for. Holland had to lengthen his pace to keep up. They entered the hall. Gareth Stormfang was sitting at the long table. Crew was sitting across from him. There was soup, there was bread, there were 2 cups of tea, both nearly empty. Gareth was leaning back in his chair with the specific posture of a man who was comfortable, and Crew was saying something about the structural properties of oak versus pine in high wind conditions, and Gareth was listening with genuine interest, and neither of them looked like 2 wolves on opposite sides of a dispute about lineage and tradition. They looked like 2 men having lunch. Holland stopped in the doorway. He looked at Nora. Nora looked at Ella. Ella looked at Crew. Crew looked at Ella, and the corner of his mouth moved. The faintest shift, barely perceptible. The face of a man who had done something he was quietly certain about and was waiting for her to catch up. Alpha King Mercer. Luna Mercer. Gareth stood. His expression was not what Holland had prepared for. It was not the closed, certain face of a man defending tradition. It was the expression of a man who had spent 3 days eating soup with a carpenter and had, against every prediction and principle he had carried for 30 years, come to a conclusion he had not expected to reach. "Stormvale welcomes you. Please sit. There is soup." Holland sat. "Alpha Stormfang," he said. "I came here to make a case." "I am aware of why you came." Gareth poured tea for Holland. Holland drank it without flinching. "Your carpenter told me you would come. He told me you would offer a title. He told me the title would be accurate because he had, in fact, built the walls." "He told you." "He tells me everything. He has been telling me everything for 3 days. The bridges, his mother's beam, the fox that lives under his workbench and apparently has opinions about timber." Gareth paused. His voice dropped. "And he told me my daughter's letters were full of me. That she wrote about this hall, about my counsel, about the way I taught her to read rooms. He said he did not come to take my daughter away from me. He came because he wanted to build something that included me. The hall went still. He also noticed the crack in the left window frame on his first morning, Gareth said. He fixed it without asking. He then noticed the settling in the north corridor floor joists and asked if I wanted him to look at those as well. He described this hall as designed for warmth. He has, over the course of 3 days, noticed more about my home than most wolves of rank see in a year. Holland looked at Crew. Crew was sitting with his hands around his tea, calm, unhurried, in his good coat. He had the expression of a man who had done the only thing he knew how to do. He had shown up, and he had been himself, and he had let the work speak. I prepared a speech, Holland said. I rehearsed it in the carriage for 2 days. Was it a good speech? Gareth asked. Nora said it was an improvement over my usual efforts. I said it was adequate, Nora said. There is a difference. It doesn't matter, Holland said, because apparently a carpenter walked into your hall and did in 3 days what I spent 2 days in a carriage preparing to do. He looked at Crew again, then back at Gareth. The title, Crew of the Royal Walls of Mercer, under my seal, is still on offer. It is not charity. It is recognition of a wolf whose hands have built the physical structures protecting pack life across 3 territories. I accept the title, Gareth said. Not because it changes my view. My view changed 3 days ago, when a commoner sat in my hall and told me that the things worth seeing are not weapons. They are bridges. He looked at Crew. He has been saying this to my daughter in letters for 4 months. He said it to my face on his first evening here. I have been sitting with it since. Ella had not moved from the doorway. She had not said a word. She was standing very still. Not the beta stillness, not the political composure. She had spent 3 days in a carriage preparing for war. The war had been won over soup. Her wolf, the decisive wolf that mirrored her in every way, was, for the second time in a month, completely silent. But this was not the dark silence. This was the silence of an animal, watching something it did not have a word large enough for. She crossed the room. Crew stood. She put her hand on his chest, her palm flat against his coat, over his heart. He covered her hand with his. His eyes were gold at the edges, steady and warm. You came here, she said, without telling me, without a strategy, without a title. You told the Alpha King to use his words, Crew said. I used mine. I designed a whole case. Holland rehearsed a speech, and you were already here eating soup. The soup was very good. That is not the point, Crew. I know, but it was. Holland, standing by the table with a bowl of soup he had not planned on eating, looked at Nora. We drove 3 days, he said. We drove 3 days, she agreed. The carpenter was already here. The carpenter was already here. Holland sat down. He ate the soup. It was, he had to admit, very good soup. Gareth came to Ella's chambers that evening. He sat on the edge of her bed for the first time since she was 12. Ella, I have been outmaneuvered by a carpenter. He paused. An Alpha King also arrived today with a title and a speech. The speech was, by all accounts, adequate. The carpenter had made it unnecessary 3 days earlier. I know. I looked at what he did not have instead of what he had built. That is not the father I wanted to be. You were not my obstacle, father. You were a wall. Walls are not obstacles. They are things that haven't been shown where the door is yet. Gareth looked at her for a long time. Then he laughed, real, the kind that shook his shoulders. The man he had been before 30 years of certainty had made him forget how to be uncertain. You are your mother's daughter, he said. She would have said the same thing. She probably would have said it sooner. Chapter 6. The Bridge. That evening, after Gareth had left her chambers, Ella found Crew in the guest quarters. He was sitting at the small desk by the window, his coat folded over the chair, his sleeves pushed up to the elbows. He was holding a small wooden box. He had been holding it since he arrived 3 days ago. He had not explained it. "You came here," Ella said from the doorway. "You walked into my father's hall, a commoner, no title, no introduction, and you requested a private audience." "I did. You told my father that my letters were full of him, that I was afraid of losing him, that you wanted to build something that included him." "I did. I had a strategy, Crew. I had Holland Mercer and the Luna of Pack Mercer and a political case and a tactical briefing. I had been designing this for days." "I know. And you walked in here with nothing, with your hands." "My hands are all I have ever had." He looked at her, those steady eyes, the gold at the edges, his wolf, patient and sure, surfacing in the way it always surfaced. Not urgently, the way light arrives on stone. "You told the Alpha King to use his words. I used mine." He held out the wooden box. She crossed the room. She took it. She opened it. Inside, on a bed of soft cloth, was a joint, a small, perfect carpentry joint. 2 pieces of pine, interlocked, fitted so precisely that the seam was invisible. She turned it in her hands. It was warm from being held for 3 days. "It is a joint from the bridge," Crew said. "The center joint, the one that holds the span together." He paused. "Pine." Ella looked at the joint. She looked at him. Her wolf, the sharp, decisive wolf that mirrored her, said nothing. It did not need a word. The word had always been him. She put her hand on his face. He leaned into it. His eyes went fully gold, and he did not look away, and neither did she. "You are doing the I thing," she said. "I know. I love you. I know that too." The 3 weeks that followed were warm, 3 weeks that felt like the letters made physical. Crew had been at Stormvale for 3 days before Holland's arrival, but those days had been about survival, making the case, drinking the tea, fixing the window frame. Now the case was made and the permission was granted, and they were simply together for the first time without a wall between them. Everything she had read on paper was here, now, in the room, in the halls, in the body of a wolf who smelled like sawdust and moved through the world with the patience of someone who understood that good things took time. He said something later, at dinner. "The frame looks good." It was a hairline crack, an hour's work. "You did not ask permission." "I noticed it needed doing. I did it." Gareth looked at him. Crew looked back with the comfortable stillness that Ella had come to recognize as his natural state. The stillness of a man who did not need to perform ease because he was at ease. He had walked into the Alpha of Stormvale's hall, drunk his tea without flinching, and fixed his window without asking, and none of it had been a strategy. It was simply how Crew moved through the world. He noticed what needed doing, and he did it. Ella, sitting across the table, watched her father watch Crew, and something in her chest loosened for the first time in weeks. "He is winning," her wolf said. "He is winning by being exactly what he is. He is not performing, he is not strategizing, he is fixing a window frame. This is the most effective courtship technique I have ever witnessed, and he does not know he is doing it." On the 5th day, Ella brought Crew to the northern ridges. It was the place she had described in her 3rd letter, the way snow sat on the slopes in winter, the light in the late afternoon, the specific quality of silence that existed at altitude. She had written about it because it was the most beautiful place she knew, and she had wanted him to see it through her words. Now she wanted him to see it with his own eyes. They climbed the ridge path in the late afternoon. The light was golden and slanted, and the snow was exactly where she had described it, holding the higher slopes, catching the color of the sky. Crew stood on the ridgeline and looked. He was quiet for a long time. "It is exactly what you wrote," he said. "I was writing it for you." He looked at her, those steady eyes, the gold bleeding in at the edges, there now, visible, the wolf pressing forward. She saw it. She had been seeing it for months in small tells, the weight in his letters, the specificity of his attention, but seeing it in his eyes, in person, with his scent everywhere, and the snow and the ridge and the silence, was different. It was the difference between reading about a bridge and standing on one. She put her hand on the side of his face. He went very still, not the human kind of still, the other kind. The kind that was too still, too complete. The carpenter's hands, which had been at his sides, came up slowly and covered hers. "Your eyes are doing the thing," she said. "I know. It is extremely distracting." "I know that too. I am going to kiss you now. I am informing you in advance because I am a wolf who plans everything, and I would like this on the record." Noted. She kissed him. On a ridge in the late afternoon, with the snow on the slopes and his scent flooding her senses, sawdust and linseed oil and rain on stone, and underneath it all, the warm, certain, patient smell of a wolf who had been building toward her for months and had never once rushed. Her wolf made a sound that was not sharp, not impatient, not strategic, just full. The sound of an animal that had been running toward something and had arrived. His wolf said one thing: hold. Not urgent. The way you say it about a joint you've just fitted. The instruction to let the mortar set. When she pulled back, his eyes were fully gold. His thumb was tracing the edge of her jaw, and he was looking at her the way he looked at a finished bridge, with the deep, settled satisfaction of a man who had built something that would hold. "That was," he started. "If you say structurally sound, I am pushing you off this ridge." "I was going to say, worth the wait." "Acceptable." The remaining 2 weeks were warm. Crew sat with Gareth in the evenings while the older wolf asked questions about bridge construction, how he chose timber, how he calculated load, how he knew when a structure was sound. The answers were precise and unhurried, and Ella watched from the doorway as her father leaned forward incrementally each evening, the way a wolf does when it is listening to something it respects. On the 9th evening, Gareth said, "The north wall, the one that was rebuilt 60 years ago. You noticed the mortar difference." "I noticed. My father rebuilt it, after the storms of his 3rd year. He matched the original style so that no one would see the repair. He did excellent work. The joint is seamless." "He was a builder," Gareth said. He did not say the next part, that his father had been a builder before he had been an alpha, that the Stormfang line had been craftsmen before they had been royalty. But Ella, standing in the doorway, heard the silence where the admission would have gone, and she knew her father was hearing it too. Crew touched things. That was what she had not been prepared for. He touched door frames as he passed through them, running his thumb along the grain, assessing. He touched the stair banister, the kitchen table, the stones of the garden wall. He touched the world the way he touched his letters, with attention, with care, with the specific awareness of someone who understood that the things you put your hands on shaped you as much as you shaped them. When he touched her, his hand on her lower back guiding her through a gate, his fingers closing around hers on the ridge path, his palm calloused and warm against her cheek, she felt the same attention, the same care, the same awareness. She was not a project. She was not a problem to solve. She was a bridge he was building toward, and the building was done with patience and certainty and the absolute, unshakable conviction that the structure would hold. "We are ready," her wolf said, quiet, certain. The sharpness still there, but settled now, like a blade put down. "We are ready." The ceremony was held at the Eastern Bridge, Crew's Bridge, Pine Span, the one he had finished during the refusal. Holland had suggested it. Ella had agreed. Crew had said, "It is a bridge. I built it. If she wants to stand on it, she can stand on it." This had been, by Crew's standards, an emotional speech. The pack stood on both banks. The moon was full. Torches lined the bridge rails, firelight reflected on the water below. Ella stood facing Crew at the center of the span. Deep green dress, hair loose. Crew in his best coat, no mortar stains. His wolf was quiet, the settled sureness of an animal that had been building toward this, one piece at a time. Here. This is what we were building toward. This is where the bridge goes. Ella's wolf, the sharp, direct wolf that had pushed her to write the letter, tell her father, fix this, do something, was perfectly still. Not silent, still. The stillness of arrival. I need to say something, Ella said. You always need to say something. I have spent my whole life reading rooms. I have walked into halls and studies, and I have seen what everyone was hiding. I fixed Holland Mercer's love life in 90 minutes because I could see what he could not. She looked at Crew. I could not see past my own father. I could not fix my own life. You did not need to be fixed. You did not need to be assessed or dismantled or strategized. You just needed to be met. And I almost missed it because I was too busy being the woman who fixes things to be the woman who needs them. Crew's eyes were warm and gold at the edges, his wolf humming underneath, tender, certain, the sound of a structure settling into permanence. I notice things, he said. I noticed you at the feast. I noticed your laugh. I noticed that you see everything, and that when I describe something, a bridge, a pup, a fox, you listened as if no one had ever described the world that way to you. He paused. I build things, Ella. I am going to build this, one piece at a time, sound, tested. The marking was gentle and deliberate, the way Crew did everything, with the attention of someone who understood that the thing he was holding deserved care. Ella held the back of his neck with the grip she used for everything, firm, certain, the grip of a woman who had been fierce her whole life and was now, for the first time, choosing to be held. The bond settled. Not dramatic, the feeling of a joint fitting, two pieces interlocked so precisely that the seam disappeared. Hold, his wolf said. Set. Permanent. Yes, hers agreed. Afterward, Nora found Ella by the bridge railing. Luna Pello Mercer. I have been told you crossed 3 territories to convince my father. We owed you. I am refusing to thank you out loud. I will be thanking you through proximity for the rest of our lives. You will see me at every solstice, every state event, every gathering where I am not strictly required. I will be the most consistent friend you ever had. Ella paused. That is your gift. That is also your punishment. I accept both, Nora said. Luna Stormfang, retired, formidable, the woman who had told Ella that her father was wrong about the world as it is, found her daughter at the bridge railing shortly after. She did not speak immediately. She stood beside Ella and looked at the river. She looked at Crew, who was standing with Holland discussing the tensile properties of pine. She looked at Gareth, who was watching from the edge of the celebration, with the specific expression of a man who was still adjusting to the fact that he had been wrong. Your father has been adjusting for 3 weeks, her mother said. He adjusts slowly, like oak. Crew would say pine is better. Crew is correct, but your father is oak. He holds rigid, and it takes a storm to move him. She paused. You were the storm, Ella. Not Holland. Not the Luna. You. Ella looked at her mother. The green eyes, the same eyes she and her father shared. The expression she remembered from the pack dinner when she was 9. Pride and worry in equal measure. Except now the worry was gone. Just the pride remained. I told you the world as he understood it was different from the world as it is, her mother said. You showed him the difference. That is harder than seeing it. That is the harder thing. She kissed her daughter's forehead. She went to find Gareth. Ella watched her cross the bridge, the retired Luna of Stormvale, walking toward the wolf she had spent 30 years standing beside, who was now standing at the edge of a celebration, learning that walls need doors. Gareth Stormfang stood at the edge of the celebration, holding a glass, watching his daughter and the carpenter. Crew was standing with Holland, They were talking about timber, Holland asking questions about load-bearing capacity with the genuine interest of a man who had discovered that carpentry was more fascinating than diplomacy, and Crewe answering with the unhurried attention that made him, despite everything Gareth had believed about rank, the most grounded wolf in the room. Ella was laughing at something Nora had said. The sound carried across the bridge. It was the laugh of a woman who had fixed a king, fought a father, crossed months of silence on paper, and come out the other side with a carpenter who built bridges and a friend who had once been the smallest enforcer in 3 generations. Gareth watched. He drank his tea. She taught the king to talk, he said quietly. The Luna taught her to ask, and the carpenter taught all of us to build. He looked at the bridge, his daughter's bridge, built by the wolf who loved her, and he thought about walls and doors and the fact that his daughter had been right. He had not been an obstacle. He had been a wall that had not yet been shown where the door was. The door was here. The bridge held, the river ran underneath it, and the structure was sound.